Welcome to Cliff's Tech Talk for kids and young adults. Today we have an individual that has held several positions in an industrial automation distributor. He's held positions from warehouse worker to product manager, where he has tied together both salespeople and technical people with where they're needed, and he's worked his way all the way up to vice president of sales at this distributorship. That's quite an accomplishment. And Jason, you should be very proud of yourself. And that is a very large accomplishment. Today, he's going to be sharing some of the decisions that he made that enabled him to work his way up through these different types of jobs. And hopefully what they'll do is they will help you as young people looking to start your careers. They'll help guide you so that you can make the proper decisions so that you will have the opportunity that Jason has had.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Cliff.
You're welcome, Jason. Thank you very much. Let's start out with how we first met and what has resulted in you sitting in this chair, willing to offer your wisdom and your experience to our audience here.
Yeah, and I'd love to share how we first met. Do you want me to tell the story? You want to tell the story?
No, it's your story. This is about you.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Cliff and I met through, it just so happened we were in the process of selling one manufacturer's distributorship that we had as far as an agreement and moving towards another. And the manufacturer that we were moving towards had local representation in this marketplace, and part of their local representation included a technical resource, and Cliff was that technical resource, and in a position to where he was our liaison between the manufacturer and the distributorship that I worked for. So Cliff came with high regard, not only in the technical aspect that he brought to the table, but also in high regard to the marketplace knowledge that he has. So he was definitely someone that we leaned on in the early venture that we had with that manufacturer. And turns out some things happened with that local representation, and we became one of the sole proprietors of that manufacturer, and ended up hiring Cliff. Cliff,
it was a turnabout, wasn't it?
It definitely was. He came from help supporting us from a different point of view to actually supporting us by working for us. Right.
Right. So for you young folks watching this, they'll throw twists and turns at you through your life. One time you'll go up a step, other time you'll go down a step. Whatever position you're in, you should do your best at that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that goes hand in hand with how I started in my career here. I work for an electrical distributor that sells industrial automation from PLCs to drives to HMIs, all the way down to pipe, wire, and fittings. But my actual degree is in kinesiology. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so my degree is in kinesiology, which is not an electrical engineering type of degree, right?
But that helps you with people, though.
It definitely helps me with people, and the way that I look at it, and the way that I have looked at it throughout my career here at the electrical distributor I'm with, is why I got into kinesiology is because not only is it the study of human movement, but it's the ability to help people. And that's how I look at our industry. And something that I would suggest to any young person out there, you look at ways that you can actually identify with how you're, and why you're doing whatever you're doing, right? And I do that on a day in and day basis, whether I'm talking to family or I'm talking to an employee or I'm talking to a customer. I'm looking for ways that I can actually help. And that's all driven based off of my degree. I want to help somebody, and so I'm looking at ways that I can potentially help them.
To be useful. To be useful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it just applies differently. Where I was going with the degree was in the medical field. What ended up happening was I went into the electrical industry.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So the way that I started off, and the reason why I have so many different ventures in the organization that I'm in right now is I was actually in the warehouse while I was still going to school.
Okay.
And so I was in a warehouse position, and I took that position to have money while I was, attending courses, and so I was actually attending courses at night while I was working full-time as a warehouse employee. And then from there, I was curious enough to know that there was a position opening as far as a counter salesperson, and I was still going into school. It was about the time I was about to graduate, and I looked at it saying I could go in and get a higher level of education, so I can go on and get my master's or go on and get a doctorate, or I can continue down the route that I was going. And the current route that I was going, I saw that there was a lot of potential, not only with this organization, but with the industry. And so I quickly started to chart my own path to where I saw that there was not just the future of this position, but the future position. And that was something where, I think as a young person, you don't necessarily always look at what's right in front of you. Look at what's down the road, and what's your opportunity level within that organization or with that industry, and how saturated is it?
To like not look at what you see, but look at what you can predict is going to happen forward.
Absolutely, that's a good way to put it. And so, to not rush the story, to put a little bit of a faster twist on it, I went into the counter position. I ended up graduating, and then from the counter position I went into inside sales. From an inside sales position I went into an outside sales position. From that I went into a product manager position, to what Cliff described earlier, and then from there I went into director of marketing, and then from there I went into sales again, where I then went into a sales leadership position that then took over marketing, and now I oversee both marketing and sales for the organization.
Yeah, so when Jason talks about industry in this case, lately we hear a lot about the medical industry and about what they've been doing for us regarding this COVID and all that. But they'll understand that these people have to have electricity. They need to have water. They need to have products, those syringes, the plastic tubing, the chemicals, all of those things have to be produced. So in this case, when Jason is saying industry, it encompasses many industries that manufacture or invent.
Yes.
A lot of inventions occur also within this industry.
I think a lot of what we see is very shiny out there, and I think a lot of us can get into that shiny object, and there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make that shiny object, right? And whether it's in the medical field, in food and beverage, when you're sipping this water, do you know how it's being filled? What type of plastic are they using? How does the plastic go down a conveying line? How do you put the cap on it? Is it a person that screws every single cap on, or is it an automated machine that's being driven by technology, right? And that's where we come in.
Think of this, every time you unscrew that cap, you undo what a machine did.
Exactly right.
Every one. And it was planned. It just didn't happen happenstance. It was planned and engineered.
Absolutely. So, and I think that's where a lot of it can be kind of lost in the fact that we have so much stuff readily available, we forget how it's produced.
That's true. There's very little work has to be done to obtain these things.
Exactly.
And then you and I can look at a bottle like this and we see, look at the transportation that it took for the plastic to be mined from the earth, okay, and brought up as an oil product, okay, and then produced as plastic, be refined.
Yep.
There, and then we have
it molded to the right specifications to that, right?
Correct.
It's got to be a mold.
Yeah, and when he says specifications, all this is done by a plan. So there has to be planners. They can think ahead and plan and work in teams, because it's a very large job in order to pull together all the people that filter the water, all the people that work with the plastic in the bottles, and all the transportation and all the interaction that could occur with the materials here. So there's a lot of jobs, very, very good jobs that you can earn a good living at, and you can be very proud of doing. Just to produce a water bottle.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how we could talk about a water bottle, right?
Right.
Think about it from that side of it. And I don't think enough people spend the amount of time to really appreciate what goes into these types of things. So we get excited about it.
Even a label, like when we would look at a label here.
Yeah, the label too.
Well, the wood comes from trees, first of all, and then on top of that, they have to have inks.
Yeah.
And the different color inks are created and transported, and then that has to go on to a machine that can print.
Right. And then it has to actually have a machine not only print it, but it has to put the label on the right specification, the right area within that bottle every single time, because you don't want a bottle coming in a case of 24 that is off.
Right. Yeah, it's even thought of the direction that the label is pointing, is what he means here. Okay. So, Now on top of that, this bottle, if you look, well, it's difficult to see there, but there's a date code now because it's considered a food. So there's going to be a date code that the FDA, requires is printed on all these. So that has to be aligned and synchronized with computer systems on there.
Yeah, so as we move forward, and I think it's one thing that as a young person, I think we should highlight is that it's only going to progress.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Human understanding of all these things is increasing.
Yeah. And it's going to progress in the way that we actually produce material, and knowing that it's only going to progress. It's something where if I were 25 years younger, and what I'm telling my kids is looking at things and appreciating things, and to be curious about what's out there, and not just accept what's being thrown in front of you, but to be curious about it.
Right. A combination of being curious, but also don't be intimidated, that think that these other people are so much better than you, or they know so much better. The reality is that we all learn through the path that we take, and that's based on our decisions that we make. Sometimes there's luck involved.
Sometimes, absolutely.
Sometimes good luck and sometimes bad luck.
Yeah.
But regardless, if you try your best to make a good decision, to improve yourself, to make yourself more useful, to add more skills to yourself, then it's going to improve your opportunity to earn a good living and be proud of what you do. Speaking of being proud of what you do, why don't we look at a couple applications that you've been involved with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. Can you tell us what's going on in this case here, Jason?
This is a material recycling facility that essentially sorts waste, right? And a lot of us, we put our waste in a trash bag and put that trash bag or that recycling bag into a gray or blue bin that essentially gets picked up. And where does that material go, right? It has to go somewhere. And this is one of the facilities that it goes to. It's called a material recycling facility. And so think about how much trash or how much recyclables that are out there, and understand from a position that a facility has to go through that at a specific speed and a specific rate, and has to identify material readily fast and have access to be able to sort, and then what are they sorting? Are they sorting plastic? Are they sorting wood? Are they sorting paper? And then be able to bale those certain things. And so this is a very complex application, which one wouldn't think that there was that complex when we throw out the trash.
Right. Give you an example of the characteristics of what. This is an entire large facility now, keep in mind, okay? This isn't the size of your house. This is probably, 20 or 30 houses or something, right?
Absolutely,
Large, okay? And so what is it that they're measuring in order to make decisions? Weight might be one example. Pieces of items that are light or heavy. The color of things can be used to decide what it may be. Is it magnetic? Is it magnetic or not magnetic? That would tell you if there's iron or metal in this. So these are very, very basic characteristics of materials. And a system like this uses sensors in order to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's using sensors essentially that are, I would say, touch points that all go back to a central brain, right? That's understanding and being able to position what's happening where. And these sensors are ideally telling, funneling this back to this brain that then tells the conveying system what to do and how to sort and how to position the material and what it's looking at. But then behind that are these drives and motors that then are making sure that they're all communicating back and positioning the conveyor to go at a certain speed.
Okay.
So it can be
Hang on, in our industry, when we use the word drives, sometimes you'll hear VFD, sometimes you'll hear the phrase speed drive. Basically what these are devices or controls that control the speed of an electric motor.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay,
You would know better than anybody else.
yeah, that's my specialty. But in our industry, an electric motor is the primary mover that moves mass, anything,
Right.
be it fluid, be it solids, whatever it may be. So when we say drives, to us, that's just our vernacular.
Yeah,
That's what we use, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. So you have a brain, you have movers, you have all these devices that are connected, right? That essentially is making the plant run. But all of that requires some level of technical expertise. And where I've kind of been successful in my career is being able to identify with customers where their pain points are or what are they trying to achieve that they aren't achieving today. Like for this specific example, what they were trying to achieve is a faster turn rate of their conveyor, right? They wanted the mover to go faster. Well, they weren't able to pick up the connected devices, the sensors that Cliff was talking about at the same time with the brain that they had in place. The brain.
When Jason says brain, we would call it a PLC, Programmable Logic Controller. And understanding PLCs is different than understanding a PC. However, they're very similar, and many of these skills are interchangeable. So in our world, there's a lot of PLCs, but we also have to connect these PLCs to PCs.
Right.
Okay? So when we say brain, we'll say PLCs, sometimes we say PCs. There's industrial versions and there's non-industrial versions of these things.
Yeah, so the brain that they had was antiquated, to put it frankly, and they weren't able to pick up the connected sensors and everything in a timely manner. So things as, in my profession, as far as electrical distributor, we're looking for ways that we can help customers with those type of pain points or what they're trying to achieve, right? And so that's where you don't necessarily have to look at sales as, selling an actual item. It's actually helping our customers achieve what they're trying to achieve or achieve some type of pain point that we can help them reduce or eliminate or, essentially fix. So
be like a consultant in a way.
Be like a consultant in a way. And that's the way I position it. And like I said, back with my degree in kinesiology, I really like helping people, right? So I position that same level of care when I'm talking to customers. And for this customer, we were able to help them by providing, an updated PLC or a brain, updated movers, right? Updated motors and drives, and updated sensors that all connected together. And much like you would see in your phone where you're able to touch an app and do all that, well, that all had to be programmed and done beforehand to make it easy for you to be able to do it. So you can have a machine operator in there that's being able to look at something that's going down the line really fast, but there had to be all those steps beforehand to where that could be able to be done and plausible for that outcome.
In a future episode, I'm going to show you a technique that we can do to watch something that's going very fast and slow it down, almost freeze frame it. That's for a future episode though. Let's go to the next application.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what do we got here, Jason?
So this next application is a bottling plant, and we kind of hinted a little bit earlier today just with the water bottles.
Right, yeah.
And we here in Southern California have a lot of specialty beverage and a lot of orange juice and juice beverage makers, and so as we described earlier, it's a lot of technical capacity needs to go into actually producing a bottle of juice or a bottle of milk, and specifically with machines like this, there's so many different moving axes, and Cliff can probably talk to this better than I can, but you have so many moving parts that a bottle like this moving down a line has to start with an empty bottle that gets filled, that maybe then gets the label put on, that then gets the cap put on, and then moves and gets bunched into an area where there is 24 or 12 or whatever the package quantity is, that then gets put into something that gets wrapped and then palletized and then put onto a truck, right? And so there's so many different moving parts here that have the ability to have some type of hiccup, or there's something wrong with a sensor or the PLC. And so much like the material recycling facility that we described in the last one, it was really about throughput for this company.
Product comes in, parts or pieces or product, or the components of a product would come in on one side, and then the manufacturing or bottling process would occur, and then it would output on the other side. So it's continuous. Whatever comes in goes out. And,
right, and it's something that a lot of these manufacturers, whether you're talking about a bottle of water or a tub of ice cream or a bag of chips, they're looking at throughput as a measurement. And to Cliff's point, it's like, they're looking at their raw ingredients and what they're utilizing in their raw ingredients and what they have to produce their finished goods, right? And so they're looking at that as how much throughput can I get from my raw ingredients into a finished good. Now, a lot of us really don't, think about this, but the amount of waste that goes through based on all those examples that I just provided of all the hiccups that could potentially happen in that line, the amount of waste there is significant, because there's always room for error, especially when you're involving human elements to that aspect.
And thousands of bottles per hour.
Exactly.
As an example, coming through. We're not talking 1, 2, 3 here. It's like, I don't know what, 500 maybe? I don't know the exact number.
So, and it's interesting, I think from a bottling standpoint, or how the bottle is getting filled and the actual throughput, I think companies are more or less looking at it from through like a day. How much can we actually see in a day, and break that down of what's being produced per hour, per shift, and go from that route. I don't know the exact.
I think we're hundreds of bottles per minute.
I would say hundreds.
Okay, per minute. Hundreds of bottles per minute. Maybe 3 a second, 4 a second, something like that.
Yeah, and I would suggest that it's probably per line, and how how fast is that line. But then what they're looking at is, okay, how do I improve from 100, say, bottles per minute to 105? I just increased by 5%. Well, if I can increase by 5% over a year, how much of that waste am I eliminating and being able to produce, which means more money for the customer, right? And so if you're able to eliminate that waste and produce more, you're able to obviously make more money by eliminating that waste. So we actually help this customer with the throughput by making sure that the amount of waste that they were going from was, like I said, it was significant enough to where just simple tweaks within their programming, we were able to help them through and get it clean enough to where they weren't wasting the amount that they were.
So the software program that controlled the processes, you upgraded the sensors so they could read faster.
Right.
Upgraded the computer, the PLC, the brain, the computer, so it could think faster, and then maybe streamlined or made the program more efficient, the algorithms.
We had to upgrade the algorithms because there was some, I call them hiccups, but there were some areas within the line, and when I say line, it's think about a huge line of all those different processes, right? That it's got to get filled, it's got to get capped, it's got to get all that. So that within the line there was certain areas where there was stops and goes, right? When you stop something and make something go, you end up, it's not smooth as one would say this bottle is moving smooth. It's a herky-jerk motion, which could then cause juice to fall over. It could cause the line to stop at a certain point and not move because it read an error code. And so that stuff was what we've worked on and upgraded the like you said, the algorithm or the actual code to help the line run smoothly.
Okay. Sometimes analogies help a lot. And in this case, if you're in high school, you're certainly aware of traffic still at this point in time. And there's some streets and some cities where those lights are timed just right and you can just go through there.
Yeah, you go straight through.
Yeah, and in some other cities, they aren't timed as well. So the cities where you could just go through and not stop so much, they have the better algorithms.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
On there. So it's the same thing. Treat each bottle like it's, you're sitting in your family's car and you're going down the road, and how often mom or dad has to stop for that red light.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
and so sometimes it may take you 45 minutes, sometimes it may take you an hour.
Right, yeah.
Right? I'd much rather take the 45-minute route.
Exactly right, because then you can get more done.
Exactly right, and that's exactly how these production facilities and manufacturing facilities are looking at your bottle of water, or your bottle of juice.
Yeah. So let's think about this for a minute here. And Jason, in your specific case, your background has been more connecting technical people to a need rather than being the technical person.
You're absolutely right.
Okay. However, you've had to have enough technical awareness so that you knew what the vocabulary was, you knew what the vernacular was, you knew how to observe and to look for a fault or a problem or something that could be improved.
Right.
Okay, so in these applications, if you think back as to what skills that you utilized to make yourself successful with this, could you hone in on maybe where you learn those skills, or maybe to help the young audience here, where should they be starting to look to try to learn some of those skills?
Yeah, I think what first jumped out at me when you started asking me that question right now was pretty basic when you think about the skills, and I think we're all inherently have this skill. It's just how do you practice it and how do you make it your own? And the first basic skill I would think of is just listening.
Good listening skills, not just speaking to people.
Exactly, and I feel like even as a young person, you obviously your parents are telling you to listen, right? But are you actually listening, right? You may hear them, are you actually listening to them,
exactly right. Yeah.
And do we practice?
Is it registering? Yeah.
Yeah, is it registering? And how are you doing active listening? That's what I like to call it, active listening, to where I'm not just hearing what you're saying, but I'm processing the information and I'm able to then have a relevant conversation with you based on what you're telling me, right? And I think there was a point in my career where I really took a deep understanding of what listening actually meant. And just as we are talking right now, I think it goes in line with family and customers and the like, that if you're engaged and you're actively listening, there's going to be a better conversation. And
for sure, there will be flow.
Yeah,
there will be flow, and there will be more honesty, really, that comes out.
Absolutely, and so with that honesty becomes trust, right? And that's as a sales professional, or in the electrical industry, when we're trying to position a newer product or a technically advanced product, it's all around that trust factor. And so being an active listener is really one of those, I would say, basic skills, but it definitely needs a lot of practice and understanding to be able to do so really well, because it's not widely accepted.
It's more of a learned skill, isn't it?
Yeah.
So being a young person, before you can learn a skill, you almost have to decide you're going to learn it. If you don't make the decision that you're going to learn something, then you're probably not going to learn it. So when you're watching this, understand that in order for Jason to do what he's done, he has decided that he has wanted to learn these skills. And that's long before he was able to help these people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think going, if we were to look at maybe a different section of that towards my career and how I've had success within this organization, it is still kind of based around those basic principles of, hey, I'm listening and I'm paying attention. And I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier in our conversation that, you always have to be wanting to learn more. And the way that I phrase it is, I never want to stop qualifying for my job. I never want to stop qualifying for my job, if that makes sense. So I'm not complacent in the fact that I've made it here. I'm saying, no, I want to continuously learn and make sure that I never stop qualifying for it.
Right. So that keeps life interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I would, definitely recommend to any young person out there that if you're thinking that the end game is getting to a specific position and then life is great, and you don't have to do any more learning or any more education, I would think that's probably the wrong path. Looking at it from a place where it's a journey and you're always going to be in that journey is really what it's all about. And the fun and the excitement and the wins are in the journey.
The adventure.
The adventure is in the journey.
If you can make learning an adventure, it's not work anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
No.
And that's, I think, when I understood that, that's when it clicked. Right? And
all of a sudden, work's not the enemy.
No, not the enemy, and it's fun, and so much so that younger generations they want to do what I do because I make it look fun, because I'm having fun. Right,
and part of the reason for this show is to help our audience see that there's many jobs where people enjoy their work. They enjoy their work. They're dedicated to their work. You learn a lot in all these types of things you've described here. Look at all that you know about here, and this is just 2 applications.
Yeah. There's so much more. So much more.
And so imagine you being a young person, and 10, 15 years from now, being from high school on, you decide that you're going to learn these things. Just imagine the things that you'll be capable of doing. Imagine the help that you'll be able to help so many people, and you'll be very proud for doing it also. So look at these industrial automation jobs. Look at the types of careers and opportunity that you don't hear about on the television. You don't hear about them. You just don't. And so look for somebody. If you don't know somebody in your family that is curious about these kinds of things, then reach out. Reach out and try to find somebody, because when people our age or older even, we're happy to try to teach younger folks.
Oh yeah.
This kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we find very enjoyable and very encouraging about the younger generation that wants to get involved with something that isn't shiny.
Yeah. And just to roll back around to the beginning of this.
Yeah.
You call for meetings. We have our monthly meetings and whatnot, and you push us adults a little bit to learn. And that gets back to where Jason was saying that we all should always try to learn more. And,
I read something interesting that literacy today is going to be described differently in the future. Right? If you're literate or illiterate, and something that as a young person I think is great to hear and understand is being illiterate in the future is going to be described as your ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
There comes a point where if you're with someone that's trying to teach you a new skill, that's an orange. Okay, it's an orange. And you move forward. And sometimes you have to accept the definition of whatever these symbols and things that we're told in order to move forward. what I found is that when I start saying no, 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 when I'm talking to somebody that I know knows more than I do, that it slows down your learning. You just have to kind of set, okay, that's a bottle of water, I'll set that there, but I'm going to use it as an orange in this scenario. Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we struggle right now with, and I say within our generation, is the ability to say, I've learned this skill and this is what I've done for 20 years. And now I need to unlearn that the way that I did it before and relearn a new way.
Right.
And as a young person, knowing that, here I am as an active listener to what we're saying today, knowing that that's a skill that is hard for this population of people. As a young person, if I understand that and I learn how to do those things, that puts me in a position now where I'm able to react differently than other populations of human beings. Thinking about that, that's where I really found that interesting. And I'm like, you know what, that's absolutely right. I need to be able to unlearn what I've learned and relearn something else.
If the gear's turning at one speed and you're turning at a different speed, you're not going to engage. So you have to change your speed
to engage.
To engage.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents.
Well, Jason, this has been wonderful, and
no, I appreciate it.
This has also given us a chance to sit and talk, and it's nice to learn more about yourself. You've done very well for yourself, and you're a wonderful example for the young folks here that are on the show or are going to be watching this.
Awesome. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for coming.
Awesome. Thank you, Cliff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So this concludes this episode of Cliff's Tech Talk for kids and young adults. And Jason Edwards, that was a heck of a contribution today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.